Hey everyone, Mark Hall here from Knockbreda Parish Church. I want to talk about something slightly different. Something that we often don't talk about. Because even though I reckon that after over a month of what has become a different way of life, most of us are used to it. But I wonder deep down, how does it make you feel? How does this change of circumstances actually make you feel? I know we can shy away from talking about our feelings in Northern Ireland, maybe even more so in the church, as if speaking about feelings is irrelevant, as if negative feelings are somehow bad, and negative feelings as a Christian, that just must be wrong. Which really means that when we do experience something bad, when circumstances do change, when we know things just aren't what they should be, we can often hear ourselves saying things like, well, it could be worse. Things aren't as bad as they could be. All in an attempt to adopt the lyrics of the 1970 song, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. I wonder if you find yourself doing that over the past few weeks. That regardless of how you feel about this change of circumstances, when you know that things aren't right, you nevertheless feel an overwhelming need to always look on the bright side of life. Things aren't as bad as they could be. Things could be worse. It is true that we always want to thank God for His goodness and His blessings, but in the Gospel of John, the Bible tells us that Jesus experienced a change of circumstances. He experienced the death of a friend. And when He did, the Bible tells us Jesus wept. Jesus, the maker of heaven and earth, felt sad. He felt low and He wept. In fact, the Bible tells us that there was another time when Jesus wept. He wept over Jerusalem. And on both occasions, Jesus felt sad, felt low, and He wept because things weren't what they should be. There was a negative change in circumstances, and because of unbelief. The Bible actually tells us that both of those things go together, because right back with the very first man who ever lived, things became not right because of Adam's unbelief in God. Jesus wept, and the Bible tells us that God's people weep. In fact, the Psalms are full of negative emotion, and the book of Lamentations, in many ways, is one book all about God's people weeping, and the reason they do is because things aren't what they should be. There's a change negatively in circumstances, and because of unbelief. In the Gospel of John, the one that tells us that Jesus wept, it also tells us that Jesus died and rose again. And His first words when He rose from the dead were, "Why are you weeping?" Because it was through His death on the cross, as He died for the sins of the world, the sin of unbelief, He rose from the dead so that in the end He would put all things right. Ultimately, Jesus died and rose again to end all weeping. I think good gospel churches are good at preaching that part. That through Jesus' death and resurrection, He has put an end to all weeping because He has brought about belief and will put all things right. But I think we can miss a really important key lesson. That even though Jesus has made a way to put things right, He hasn't yet returned to fully do so. And in the meantime, we still live in a world full of unbelief where things aren't right. God doesn't call us to always look on the bright side of life. He also calls us to recognize that things aren't right and the world is full of unbelief. And when we do, it is thoroughly Christian to feel low, to feel sad, and even to weep.